All right, you're watching New Car Spin, also known as Road and Tracked, when I cover some real estate. I'm Brian, your host here, and also your Texas real estate agent. What I have today is very interesting. This is probably what you think would be a real estate agent's car. I think this is more or less like your mom's car, but it's the Genesis GV80, and it's a 2025. First thing I noticed, besides just how it looks and the matte paint, are these headlights. Very blingy, this thing. This is a $1,500 or $1,800 paint job. It's a matte paint. It's actually a green metallic matte. It's pretty cool, and as I go through, you'll see. I feel like the trim should have been black instead of bright work. All this chrome is a little too much. I think if it was black and with darker windows, this thing would look pretty sinister. Although I have been on the freeway with it and actually next to a Bentley, and I kind of felt embarrassed because, you know, this isn't a Bentley. However, you'll see these massive wheels, these 22-inch wheels. They're on these weird Michelin Primacy Tour, so they're kind of like eco tires, even though this thing has only really been getting me 20 miles per gallon, and I haven't even been hammering it because, well, it might be a V6 turbo, but it certainly doesn't feel like it. It feels like just a old school V6. It feels like a 200 horsepower engine. Frankly, it's underpowered. Frankly, they need to put the twin turbo from the G70 in this. It just, I don't get it. This is a weird vehicle. I love the G70. That's probably the best Genesis you can get right now. But I look at this and I go, why? Why? What do they do here? So it has things like soft closed doors, right? That's great. So when you don't shut it all the way, it'll close on its own. But then if I look really closely at the paint, there's some sort of orange peel on here. You know, you see on the prod line here. This paint just looks a little rough, and I don't know what kind of paint process this is, but I mean, look here, it looks like overspray. I just don't get it, whatever that is. And obviously, matte paint color requires a specific car washing technique. You can't just take it to a car wash. Maybe they figured it out. Maybe that's what the result is you have to have a paint like this. It looks good though. There's no third row. There's an interesting key here. Let me open the trunk. Oh yeah, I don't think it can open from the remote if the car is running, or the engine's running. It's a 3.5 turbo, but again, doesn't really matter to me. Look at this suede headliner all the way to the D-pillar. Suede all the way. I mean, that is amazing. This is what the Lexus GX should be inside, but it's not. But we have it here in the Genesis. So I wouldn't blame you for getting one of these just for the interior. No spare tire. What is this, the jack? Who knows, I don't want to go in there. All right, power trunk, of course. What does it not have? Well, it does not have air suspension. It has a pretty big back door here where it opens and it's easy to get in and out of. Power seats, obviously, to recline. And as they recline, you see this bottom bolster, it kind of comes up and down. So it gives you a good angle while you're trying to relax in the back. And it actually does move forward and back. Very nice. And they fold, you know, you push that button, it folds. Heated and cooled seats in the back. Very similar in price point at $83,000 to a Range Rover Sport. I would probably have the Range Rover Sport over this, or maybe the, what do they call that other one? It's more with the flush door handles. The Evoque, maybe, I think it was called. Haven't driven one in a long time, so I don't remember. That's Land Rover's fault, not mine. Inside though, this is the 2025, so the interior is very, very nice. And I want to show you something unique here. Two things. Cup holders are nice and large. I can actually fit a quote-unquote Gatorade bottle. This is the one that I found that fits. So what is this? 28-ounce bottle. Fits right in there just fine. That's amazing. Great for road trips, right? Something else is Bang & Olufsen stereo, which is quite banging. And I mean, it's not the It's not going to beat the stereo in the well, it will beat the stereo in the Lexus GX, that's for sure. It's just that there's a couple stereos that are a little bit better than this, like the Bowers and Wilkins in the Volvo XC90, which is the same price as this, right? So the biggest problem I have here is, you see, I'm sitting in my seat and my leg is actually higher than the center console. That means I feel like I'm riding on top of the car. And if you look here, my knee is above the control knob for the screen, and also the gear selector is below me. It's weird. I do not like that. I loathe that. And what it also means is when I look out, okay, see how low the screen is? The screen's very, very low. It's a big wide screen, and I never knew I would like it as much as I like it, but because, you know, if you're on the computer all day, the last thing you want is to look at another screen. But this screen is actually very handy. It's nice to just have this fluid, like, horizon of information. However, it's low. I mean, if you look at where it is, okay, in relation to where I'm sitting, well, basically it's like chest level, below my nips. It's below my nips, okay? The top of the screen is lower than my nips, and I'm sitting already above the center console. So I feel like this car is made for 4-foot tall people, and maybe really small people to be drivers, and then you get driven around in the back seat. I really don't know. Really cool sunroof, full pano shades, that sort of like Mercedes-Benz like. I remember that I had that in my W211 E320 Blue Tech. Obviously, though, Mercedes didn't go as far as having this kind of headliner. So other than that, I feel like the worst thing here is this trim. It's like, I don't know if you ever grew up in the 90s or the 80s. Obviously you would be in the 90s. You would have seen Formica countertops, and this seems like that, you know, like, oh, it's cut resistant and you could put a hot pan on it. And, you know, this also looks like something I saw in a plane, you know, in like a old school, before it was Delta, it was Northwest. It looks like something out of a Northwest aircraft, and it basically looks like the partition to first class, with that weird trim in there, or it looks like your tray table, you know, the whole back seat back in front of you. I don't know if I like that. I really can't say I'm a fan of it, because it just, ugh, it looks cheap. I don't know why. You know, I think Genesis is really good with their interior design, because they're all about texture. You know, you have your quilted seats with very smooth leather. You have piping here. You've got fluting on the doors, right? You've got smooth paneling. You've got leather trim on the dash, and then you've got suede up here. See, it's just all different stuff, but it all comes together, except for that trim piece. That trim piece, it should, what they should have done was they should have come up with this almost like the Volvo XC40, a cool hologram, and then rather than doing under trim lighting, because there's lighting under there, they should have just made that whole panel glow, sort of like the new BMW 5 and the 7 Series. They could have done really cool holographic effects through the light in there, and then just made this really bomb ass effect, but they didn't do that. So clearly, like, they just went for the cheap route, and I'm gonna call it the cheap route because it looks cheap. The more I sit in here, the worse it gets, for that, just because of that trim. But the rest of it's okay. You know, you have your touch screen here for your climate controls. You actually have fragrance now, so you could choose between one or two. I don't know where the fragrance is because I don't see the bottles for it in here. I don't know where it goes. Maybe it's under this cabinet, but really this is not that deep. Literally, I don't know what goes in that whole thing, but that's what we get. So otherwise, if I try to drive, obviously we have a 360, right? So let's go like this. 360 camera, we have our different settings. Let's see if I can yeah, we have touch screens so we can see our car and do all that. That's, I guess, handy for some people. Let's go back. These buttons actually feel really good. I don't know what they did to these buttons, but they're like smooth. They feel smoother than glass. I don't know how to explain it, but they do. Okay, we're gonna go into drive. This is a dirt road that I figured this car would do very well on, but it actually doesn't. It translates everything into the cabin, and that's weird because I think a Land Rover Sport a Range Rover Sport would like absorb these impacts better. But on the freeway in this vehicle, it feels like it has a lot of suspension travel, and then the tuning is a little weird. On the freeway, the car kind of rocks and does a bunch of stuff. Remember when I drove that Toyota Grand Highlander and it made me car sick, and I was like, this is a terrible car? This Genesis GV70 is very similar to that, except it's this way, right? Not this way like the Grand Highlander was. So I feel like maybe you would have passengers get sick in this car because of this rocky thing, rocking back and forth motion. Actually, in this way, it's sway left and right. But here on this off-road feel, it just doesn't absorb anything. It feels like just a big spring, and everything just kind of comes in and out of the vehicle. And the dampers are like hiding this 1-inch rocks, but for some reason the smaller rocks just kind of vibrate through. This isn't really a washboard either, but we're definitely, SUVs should be able to go off-road. And I think these tires, okay, go back there with my Land Rover and check it out. I think these tires are basically the main problem with this car. They should have put Pirelli P0s on here, but then again, this doesn't have the twin turbo V6 out of the G70s. So I think Genesis missed the boat here. It's got a nice interior, it's comfortable, it's soft, it's whatever, but it's really nothing special. I thought it was gonna be something special, and it's not. And I think that if you're looking to spend $83,000, the Volvo XC90 is just like a staple. Whoa, watch out for that. The Volvo XC90 is a staple of like SUVs. It has the full air suspension, by the way. Even though it doesn't have a V6, you could get one with 455 horsepower if you got the full hybrid version. And I'm not sure if they're going to make an EV version of this. I think EVs are dead because they're all being pulled off the market and they're not selling well, and there's this whole thing going on with the battle about EVs. And I think that just in general, there needs to be some refinement here already on this GV80. I think the GV80 needs to be determined as a total luxury cruiser, so it needs to be more luxurious, and that they could start with the ride. Or it needs to be sporty, then they could start with the ride. You see what I mean? They need to really fix the way this thing rides. And that, because there's no handling, and I've been getting 20 miles per gallon, and I haven't even been hammering it because it doesn't move. It just doesn't go. The fastest you can get this is you could just break into the trips. You can go about 104 miles an hour, and then you're like, I'm done. The thing it's just, I wouldn't say it's all over the road. It just doesn't have stability. And then in regular mode, you could go into sport mode here, put into sport and stuff, but it doesn't really do anything. It just changes the gearing, and that brings me to the last piece. If you were to go through your regular commute and you got your left turns and your right turns and stuff, when you want to hammer it out of a corner, like let's just say you want to beat the light or beat the traffic and get in front of the people and make your right turn, the transmission in this thing is always on the wrong gear, and I can't figure out why. How is it so hard to be in the right gear? And then these paddles, there's a delay in the paddles. It's like a good 3/4 of a second, maybe even a full second. So you couldn't really do anything that would, pass in like construction equipment or something, and going slow on the tollway or whatever. Like, you just have no control here, and that's been a problem for me. Like, I just feel like this is not a driver's car. It clearly isn't, because I'm above the console. That's, to me, the clear sign that this is just not going to be a thing for me. Like, personally, hard pass. I would get the XC90 or the Range Rover Sport and call it a day. And there's other vehicles out there too in this price range that, like the GX. I mean, you wouldn't get this interior in a GX though, and I bitched about that GX interior not being as nice as this. So we're in a weird spot, and you're in a weird spot if you're in the $80,000 range. So that's what we get, and that's what you are stuck with until maybe, I don't know, there's a solution to this. I haven't really used the Radar Cruise. It does follow the car in front. It's got a lot of options here for the self-drive control, although I tend to turn all that off these days. I want to be more engaged with what I'm doing, and that's it. So you have our little indicators there. That way the, you know, old people driving it don't have to turn their head or even be bothered to look into a mirror. So that's it, and I appreciate you watching. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I don't live here, so I'm house hunting this week actually for a client. So as I'm working, I'm gonna have to sign off here. I'm going to check out a house. And if you're interested in more real estate stuff, leave a comment below. Tell me you want more real estate. All right, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.